In this video, we are going to continue to talk about Corona Renderer in Cinema 4D. So in the previous video, we saw how we can set up a really fast scene using 3 simple lights and a character from an external website. And we also found everything set up for us, for example, the render engine. And so we tested the first Cinema 4D tools and materials, lights. We also saw that we can work with Cinema 4D materials and Cinema 4D lights, but it's better if we use the Corona Render lights and materials. Now in this video we will continue to talk about lighting and what is global illumination. So first of all here, I'm going to launch the render settings. This is a new scene, so I need to set up the renderer first. And I can open up the render settings, go to the renderer and set up Corona. And this is the first step, really important, the one that we didn't do in the previous video because we already opened a Corona scene. So in this case, we created the settings by ourselves. We just activated the Corona rendering basically. And here you will see many different panels that we will explore little by little. And you can see here you have camera post-processing. So some of these are kind of post-production effects. And scene environment, this is where you set up the environment when you create HDRI scenes. But this is going to be covered into another lesson. And performance settings, this is about global illumination and anti-aliasing and other settings, really important settings. Frame buffer, and this is about, well, you already saw the frame buffer in the previous video, so you can change basically the filter, the image filter. And this is the secondary bounces. And right now it's set to UHD cache. And I'm gonna explain to you a little bit. Now, if you go in the general settings, you can see there is a part concerning global illumination. And this is probably the most important settings. So right now we are at full, which is multiple bounces. We can switch to single bounce and get back to multiple bounces. And we have the GI solver and we have path tracing and UHD cache. Now, well, we also have this is a new one, but it's experimental, so we're not gonna use it. Usually path tracing is simpler, and I'm gonna explain to you that later. So first of all, let's see what global illumination is about. Of course, this is a basic part for, let's say, beginners. You probably know what global illumination is if you have used other software. So it's basically a really complex system that is going to give you a photorealistic look, and it's based on bounces of light. So in real life, the light doesn't hit a surface and stops there, but it bounces all around the scene, and it's gonna also take colors with it. So it's gonna create an effect which is called color bleeding. So you can see many examples on the difference between good global illumination and not good. So a good global illumination needs to have direct and indirect bounces of light, so rays of light. So if it doesn't have the indirect, it doesn't have bounces, so it's not gonna work properly, and it's not gonna have a photorealistic look. And some examples here will help you to understand this better, but just remember that global illumination, it's composed by primary and secondary bounces and direct and indirect lighting. So let's go here also to check some images so you can see some examples of what direct and indirect means. So the direct rays, or let's say the direct illumination, is the illumination coming from the actual source hitting the first surface. That's the direct. Indirect is when the rays will start to bounce into the scene. Now we can also check here another important topic, which is corona render noise. Now the noise usually is caused by really draft global illumination. So all we need to do, all we need to focus on is to solve the quality of the global illumination. So when you have low quality parameters, you're gonna have the noise. You're gonna have a lot of noise, which is these little dots that can be in the shadows or also coming from the lights. These are basically really a low number of rays, a low number of photons coming from the light. So this is all a theory part that we're gonna see then in action what all of this means, but just focus on these first terms and topics. So illumination, noise, and direct and indirect. And in the videos concerning the render quality, we're gonna address this really important issue about the noise. So just remember that, take notes, and we're gonna explain that later on. And you can also see other images here as a reference, of course. And there is a tool which is called denoiser, which is gonna help you to decrease the render quality and create really nice and clean renders. Well, again, I'm just showing you some examples before we are actually getting into the scene. And you can see here, again, you have examples of renders with noise and without noise and so on. So when you are in interiors, you usually need to have more light than the exterior, because when you are in an exterior, your scene is full of light because you don't have objects around, you don't have like small openings and things like that. So you need to first divide these two situations, which are interior and exterior. And well, I'm gonna start here with some examples. So I'm gonna create a standard cube and adjust the segments. I'm increasing here the segments and go to display, show the edges so we can actually see the divisions that we are placing. And this is what I'm trying to do here, is trying to create a really basic scene that will be helpful to explain the starting points of the global illumination and direct and indirect. Now, I converted this to polygonal modeling and I am selecting the points. I'm gonna move the points up. So I'm trying to create a house shape, more or less. And also all these topics about 3D modeling and how to create objects and use Cinema 4D are covered in the Cinema 4D video course that you will find in the channel. So just search it in the channel or write in the comments. I'm gonna send you a link. Now, all I'm doing here is deleting some of the polygons in order to create kind of an interior space. So, well, I can use this scene as an exterior or interior, but just to make some example, I'm gonna add a corona sun, first of all, and that's gonna be in the middle of your scene as usual, as it usually happens in Cinema 4D. And I'm gonna launch the corona frame buffer and render the scene. And this is the first result. So you can see that this is a really bright light that I've just added in my exterior. We have also some other panels here in the frame buffer that you can use, for example, to store the images, and perhaps you want to do some changing and you want to compare many renderings, or you can delete them. Okay, that's the sun icon there. I'm gonna move it aside And I don't know if I'm gonna use it right now, but this is just to show you how you can quickly add an exterior lighting. So I'm gonna start to place some objects inside the scene to test the both the direct and indirect illumination. So I'm going to create here, well, I'm gonna scale this up because I think it's too small right now. Okay, well, you either scale up the scene or you scale down the objects as you prefer, but try to do everything in the real life measures, so centimeters or meters or wherever, because probably the realistic units will work better. And I changed the color here. I don't want to use the corona material yet. I'm just changing the color of the object I've selected, so the cube in this case, and which is not a cube anymore. I'm gonna delete the sun. I'm gonna add a standard light here, corona light, which is a rectangular light by default. Switching to 4 views, and I'm going to place that light exactly where the opening is. So I'm gonna rotate it, activate quantizing in order to rotate it correctly to 90 degrees, and then I'm going to move it a little bit outside. Okay, so you in an interior you can simulate the sun, or well, the external light, the natural external light, by using this type of technique, which was called once the portal light. So it's a light representing the skylight coming from outside. And I'm gonna render here. You can see that little light coming inside your interior, and you can already see the global illumination here. So you have a mixture of direct and indirect lighting. So now I'm gonna scale this, select the corona light, start to increase the size in centimeters. So this is why having everything in the correct scale, it's handy, and re-render again. And also, this is why history panel here, where you can store the different renderings, is useful, because you can make some changes, store it, and then check it later. And again, you can see here down below, you can see the passes of the render. So this is gonna continue to render. It's called progressive rendering, and I can store here this current rendering so that I can compare it with the following. Now let's go to the settings again, and you can see we have progressive rendering. This is what we are using right now. And we have the global illumination, which is set to UHD cache, which is the best for interiors. So if you have to do interiors, UHD cache, it's more complex. It's a little bit longer, I think, about compared to the path tracing, but it's indicated in many websites as the choice, the first choice. Path tracing is usually selected when you need to do exteriors. And you can see here that we have secondary global illumination UHD cache. So if you change there, the GI solver is going to change also that panel. And you can see we don't have an extra panel when we use path tracing. And let's launch a render and see the differences. So you can see they look pretty much the same, but usually path tracing, it's a little bit faster and also less accurate than UHD cache. So it can be used for exteriors, because usually exteriors are less complex than the others. And you can see here I can activate A and B and clear out A and B so that I can compare two different renderings. So right now I am selecting the first one there. So this is A, and I can move around this to see the differences. And you can see that probably I have more noise to the A1 because I have less passes. So the more you leave the progressive rendering working, the more quality you will have because it will solve the noise problem basically. Okay, let's get back to the settings and go back to the path tracing option here and get back again to the UHD cache because as we said, this is for interiors. So just remember this and switch it if you are in an interior situation or exterior. You also have presets, as you can see here. You have still frame, fast, or you have animation, depending on what you need to do. So you can decide. Probably animation is more approximate because it needs to be a little bit faster, and it's flicker free, which means that it's gonna try to not to do the flickering effects, which are really annoying. Again, let's go back to path tracing. Again, this is for exterior, and just to make some more example, or well, you can test also 4K if you want. You can give it a look, and you can see it looks pretty much as the UHD. And probably this will become part of the next Corona renderers. So feel free to do some experiments yourself. Once you understand here the logic, you can just go and make your own tests. Right now, again, I'm not going to use it to make these first examples. So I'll go back to UHD cache, and I want to show you here the none. So I'm going to basically deactivate the global illumination just to show you what's the difference between having only direct and a combination of direct and indirect. So I'm launching the render again, and there we go. So you can see that that wall is completely black, and everything that is not directly hit by the light is gonna show up completely dark. So again, I can store this render and I can do my compare, but you can already tell the differences. And you saw that we didn't have noise, but of course we have a really downside, which is not having the global illumination. And again, I'm just using now another settings, only single bounce. It's gonna be more approximate but quicker. So this can be used if you want to do a quick draft of your scene, of your visual. This is a good choice so that you can understand how the scene is looking, and then later on you can change and increase the quality settings. So I hope you have this clear. So this is really important. These are really the basic parts of Corona render for Cinema 4D. And again, you can continue to make your own experiments. Now I'm just going to create more primitives just to test also the color bleeding, or basically the bouncing of the secondary rays, or the indirect illumination and secondary bounces. So I'm gonna place a sphere here, and also I'm gonna add some more primitives like a cone, and there you go. Well, feel free also to create your own scene, to use your own models or whatever. You can go to the Cinema 4D asset browser and import objects from there. But I'm trying to do something really simple. Now, I'm gonna increase the segments of the sphere. Let's add one last model. I'm gonna add a cylinder. There we go. And scale it up. And I want to try to place this cylinder kind of in front of that light in order to block the light a little bit, so that again we can test how the light is actually like going around the object, bouncing all around, and like going after Okay, changing the colors right now. So I'm not using materials, just changing the object's colors and assigns different colors so that we can actually see some color bleeding. Of course, later in the course, we're gonna work also with materials. Again, this is just a step-by-step approach when you can learn starting from the bottom and increasing the level every time. So again, I'm gonna launch another render. Again, I can make comparisons here with A and B, and clicking on this line and move it around, I can see the passes there, 7 passes from in the left, 3 passes in the right, and you can tell already the difference in the noise. You can see here we didn't have noise in the direct lighting, the light illumination, but also it didn't look great. And let's click render again. Okay, now you can definitely see how much that the red cylinder is bleeding the color out. Now, again, we can change. We are now at full mode UHD cache. So this is the best option in this situation right now. Then we're gonna check other advanced parameters later. And again, you can make your test, but this is how the scene is looking right now. And you can definitely see the bounce, the secondary bounces there coming from the cylinder and going to the wall, and also some more color bleeding of other objects. For example, the cone on the cube and the blue light in the bottom of the sphere. So you can definitely see here how the indirect lighting and color bleeding is working out. So this will be all for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed. Please support our channel. Please, if you can join and support us more so that we can make more videos about Corona renderer, but also about Cinema 4D. And don't forget to give a look to the Cinema 4D video course if you are interested. And so thanks for watching. See you in the next lesson.